All right, so start drawing a 2x2 box. We're going to draw a 2x2 box for each one of these. I'm going to take my first box and I'm going to put it inside, sorry, my first term, and put it inside my first box. First term always goes inside the first box. I'm going to take the last term and I'm going to put it inside the last box. I haven't done anything with the middle term yet. We'll get to it in a second. First, the easiest part of this is right here where it says n squared. I'm trying to come up with things on the outside that multiply to make the things on the inside. Well, what multiplies to make n squared? N times n. I can put a little 1 on them if I want. So n to the first times n to the first. The first box is always going to work out like this. It's always going to be a letter squared. You just put the letter to the first, letter to the first. There you go. That one's easy. The trickier part is I need to think about, well, what multiplies to make the number 18, positive 18? 6 and 3 multiply to make 18. 6 times 3. 9 and 2. There you go, 18 and 1. Now here's the problem. They need to add to make -9. So all three of those numbers multiply to make positive 18. But I need them to add to make -9. Well, let's first, how can I multiply two numbers together and make a positive number, like 18, but they add to make a negative number? Well, if I'm doing negative and the positive, they multiply to make a negative, right? But if I make them both negative, so yes. So I'm going to say, okay, we're going to make them both negative. That way they multiply still to make positive, but now they can add to make a -9. Which of those pairs adds to make -9? So these would add to make -9. These add to make -11, and these add to make -19. So those are the two that I want. So I'm going to put -6 and -3. It didn't really matter which one I put on top and which one I put on the sides. Now, to check and make sure that's right, I can multiply -6 times n, I get -6 n. -3 times n, I get -3 n. Put a little 1 on both of those. And those two boxes should combine to make that middle term. If they combine to make that middle term, I know I did this correct. So here's how I'm going to write my answer. All right. My answer is always going to be like that. It's always going to do two parentheses, two pairs of parentheses. Inside the first pair of parentheses, I'm going to put what's on top, which is n to the first power -6. And then inside the second parentheses, I put what's on the side, which is n to the first power -3. And if you remember from a couple chapters ago, we had a whole lesson where I started you off with this, and you had to multiply it using the same box and get this. So we're just going backwards from what we did before. This process that we are doing is called factoring. So when you see them ask you to factor something, which is going to happen a good bit under EOC, Whenever they say to factor something, that's what you're doing. It's just backwards multiplication. All you're really doing is finding things that multiply to make whatever they give you. We're going to do the first 4 problems together. All right, my go-to race. All right, so step 1 is always take the first, put it in the first box. Take the last, put it in the last box. What multiplies to make x squared? X and x. Now, yes, what multiplies to make 10 would be 10 times 1 or 5 times 2. They multiply to make a positive, and they need to add to make a positive, so I don't have to do anything about with negatives. So which one adds to make 11? Yeah, so 10 plus 1's 11, 5 plus 2 would be 7. So 10 and 1, so 1. Yes. I can come to the mirror, I can go to them. Is that either way? It's fine. I'll just come to them. What class? What A1. Oh, okay, never mind. That'll make it hard to come back to my second block there. Okay. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Where was I? Okay, yes. 5 plus 2 is 7. 10 plus 1 is 11. I want 11, so I'm going to use 10 and 1. If I fill in the boxes, I get 1x, 10x, and those two do combine to make 11x. So my parentheses, x plus 10, and then my other one, x plus 1. Which one? Right here. So what I did was so when I circled this pair right here, I took the first one number, put it here, the other number, and put it there. And I could have flipped them. I could have put the 1 there and the 10 here. It'd been fine. Same thing. Yes, so my circle that. My answer, that right there. Hmm. So you can go ahead and get number 3 started. Might not be able to get all the way through it. Let's get started. First term, the first box. Last term, the last box. What multiplies to make r squared? R to the first, r to the first. Now I have negative 30, and it needs to add to make, well, there's no number here, so if there's no number, what's the default? 1. Well, what are some possibilities that all multiply to make 30? I know 30 and 1 make 30. What else? 6 and 5. We're getting there. What else? 15 times 2. And okay. Now, yes, it multiplies to make a negative. Now, if it multiplies to make a negative, how many numbers have to be negative? Both or just one? Just one. Now, before I just make a whole bunch of different possibilities, they have to add to make a positive or a negative number. A negative. That means the bigger number has to be negative, okay? So I'm going to put a negative on only the bigger number. All right. If they added to make a positive, I'd put the negative on the smaller number. Okay. Well, now I can just say, well, if I was to add those, negative 30 plus 1 makes negative 29. Negative 6 and 5 make negative 1. Negative 15 and 2 make negative 13. And negative 10 and 3 make negative 7. What number did I want to get? I wanted negative 1, so that means I need negative 6 and positive 5. I'll put a little plus on there. So negative 6, positive 5. So if I finish the inside of my box, negative 6 times r, negative 6r, positive 5 times r, positive 5r. And yes, those would combine to make that. So my answer, r minus 6, r plus 5. Pause there. Let you try number 4. See if you can do number 4 all the way.
Between 9 and 10. I have zeros, but I get them. And then I just did 11.
Your name's up there. That means that just tells. It reminds me that I need to go and check off that you've done on the search.
You don't see this number right there? Oh, that.
Well, dang. Looked at me. I looked at him and I just see your eyes be so big. He looked rich and he looked down. I looked.
All right. I got first term in the first box. It's going to be R times R. Last term, the last box. All right. What numbers multiply to make 5? 5 and 1. That's the only pair of numbers that's going to multiply to make 5, right? That's because 5 is what's called a prime number. A prime number only itself in 1. Okay. Now it multiplies to make a negative. So one of them has to be a negative, correct? Well, on the last problem, we said that this number was negative, so the bigger number had to be negative. But now that number is positive, right? So that tells us that the bigger number has to be positive. And if the bigger number is positive, the smaller number has to be negative. Yeah. So if I multiply them, they make -5. But if I add them, they make +4, which is what I need. So +5, -1. So R plus 5, R minus